What's up, Kings? It's Dan from Daft Previews, and I am back to give you a comprehensive preview of all the player props that you should know about tomorrow. We're going to be going through all the plays with easy matchups, and I'm going to be sharing my best bets. If you want to see my best bets, feel free to skip ahead. I've got chapters down there in the bottom. Let's get straight into it. Starting off with the plays with easy matchups. And a quick reference to the ones that we did yesterday. I think 14 out of the 20 player picks that I shared with good matchups, they all happen to cash. So if you did tail some of those, well done to you. We had our one best bet, $2.20, that cash. So if you want to see that, stick around for the recap at the end. I'm going to do something a little bit different with you today. I'm going to show you some of the data whilst I talk through it. So let's get into this one. Our very first one, though, that I want to talk through, we're going to go through each game by game, starting off with the Sacramento Kings versus the Detroit Pistons. So, a very first player that I want to talk through is De'Aaron Fox, and we're liking his assists based on the matchup. Remember, these aren't picks. This is just some stats for you. So, looking at his over 5.5 assists, the Pistons allow the third most assists to point guards. Fox has covered this in both head-to-head matchups. 7 and 9 assists, as you can see. He's hit this line in 5 of his last 10, averaging 5.3 assists per game. So, De'Aaron Fox fans, you can jump on him. The other one is Jaden Ivey. We're looking at over 15.5 points. The Kings allow the 7th most points to shooting guards. Ivey's covered in 1 of 2 games against the Sacramento Kings, 24 and 5. So, good game and a bad game. The other one is Harrison Barnes, over 10.5 points. The Pistons allow the 3rd most points to small forwards. Now, Barnes, he's covered in both matchups. He's averaging 23 points per game. Look at that, 27 and 19. The other one is Keegan Murray. So, Keegan Murray, over 14.5 points. The Pistons allow the 4th most points to power forwards. He's covered in 1 of 2 games, averaging 16.5 points against them. And the last one within this game is Domantas Sabonis, looking at his points and assists line over 30.5. So he hasn't covered it against the Detroit Pistons, but the Pistons allow the 7th most points and the 5th most assists to centers. He has covered in 5 of his last 10 games, and he's averaging 30.3 points and assists. Heading into the next game, it's the Portland Trail Blazers versus the New York Knicks. So just as an FYI, there's nothing positionally as an advantage between that Minnesota and Orlando Magic game. I'm sure there's great picks in there, but nothing based on the criteria that I'm looking at. So we're jumping straight into Portland versus the New York Knicks. And the first play is Scoot Henderson over 5.5 assists. The Knicks allow the 2nd most assists to point guards. Scoot's covered in 5 of his last 10, averaging 6.2 assists per game. Sticking with the point guards, Jalen Brunson in the rebound department has a good matchup today. So you're looking at over 3.5. The Blazers allow the most rebounds to point guards. Brunson's covered in 5 of his last 10, averaging 3.9 rebounds per game. He's played them once, and he pulled down 5 rebounds in that matchup. The next one is Dante DiVincenzo. We're looking at his points line here, over 12.5 points. So the Blazers allow the most points to shooting guards. He's averaging 14.4 points per game in his last 10, covering 5 times. 3 recent matchups against the Blazers, covered it twice, averaging 16.3 points per game. OG Anunoby, over 13.5 points. So the Blazers allow the most points to small forwards. He has covered this 1 and 2 against them. But an important note is since he's joined the New York Knicks, he hasn't gotten close to this line. So beware. The next one is Jeremy Grant. And we're looking at his 3-point prop here. Over 1.5 3-pointers made. So the Knicks allow the 2nd most 3-pointers made to power forwards. Grant's hit this in 3 times. He hit 3 3-pointers in his last matchup against them. He also scored 44 points in that game. He's covered in 5 of his last 10 games, averaging 2.1 3-pointers made. And if we're looking at 3-pointers made, an interesting one is his attempts. So he's averaging 4.4 attempts over his last 10 games. The next one, it can't be a Knicks game without a Julius Randle prop. But positionally, he's got a good matchup when it comes to assists. So you're looking at over 4.5 assists. So the Blazers allow the 3rd most assists to power forwards. Randall's covered in 3 of his last 10, averaging 3.3 per game. So not a great one there. But since all the trades went down, he's gone 4, 5, and 5. So for those Julius Randle fans, you might like a play at that. And the other one's Isaiah Hartenstein, actually, over 2.5 assists. So the Blazers allow the fourth most assists to centers. He's covered in 6 of his last 10. He's averaging 3 per game. And he's versed the Trailblazers twice recently, covering 1 in 2. He's averaging 3 assists in those games. That's Isaiah Hartenstein. Heading into the Memphis versus Dallas Mavericks game, there's only 2 players who positionally have a good matchup in this one. Desmond Bane is one of them. You'd be looking at his over in PRA, 39.5. So Dallas allows the 6th most points, 6th most rebounds, and the most assists to shooting guards. Bane is only covered in 2 of his last 10, averaging 35 per game. The line is elevated, and that's because Ja Morant is out. So this is his form against the Mavericks. He's gotten very close, and this is his form over his last 10. So there's a lot of red there, but you've got to decide whether you want to take that. But matchup-wise, it is a good one. And the next one is Jaren Jackson Jr. We're looking at his points and rebounds prop. So over 30.5. He is a game time decision. So no one roast me in the comments for mentioning a player who might not be playing. But Dallas allowed the 2nd most points and the 2nd most rebounds to power forwards. He's only covered it in 2 of his last 10, averaging 26. But it was his last 2 games. He's got a 50% hit rate in 6 games against them, averaging 26.3. So there's definitely potential for him to go off, but there's also potential for him to be absolutely shit. Then heading into the last game, the Toronto Raptors versus the Los Angeles Lakers. Emmanuel quickly has a good matchup in terms of rebounds. So you're looking at over 3.5. The Lakers allow the 4th most rebounds to point guards. He's only covered in 3 of his last 10 games. But what's interesting to note, the 3 games he did cover, they all happen to be once he moved to the Toronto Raptors. So you can see these last 4 games here. That's once he's made the move to Toronto. His rebound prop might be a good one. The next one in the same game is Austin Reeves, over 6.5 assists. So the Raptors allow the most assists to point guards. Reeves is lining up and starting at point guard in this one. He's covered this in 3 of his last 5, averaging 6.2 per game. He's had 2 head-to-head matchups with them, recording only 3 and 5. He played 28 and 32 minutes in those games. Over his last 5, he's averaging close to 35 minutes per game. So he's starting, expected to get more game time. LeBron or someone could not play, so might be a good opportunity there to take Austin Reeves. And you can't have a Raptors game without Scotty Barnes, so you'd be looking at his points and assist prop over 25.5. The Lakers allow the 6th most points and the 2nd most assists to small forwards. He's covered in 6 of his last 10 games, averaging 26.9 points and assists per game. He's played the Lakers twice. He's averaging 28 points and assists in those games. Most recently, nailed them with 39. So Scotty Barnes could be a good one for you. And then the last one is Spicy P, Pascal Siakam. We're looking at his assist prop, which is over 4.5. The Lakers allow the 6th most assists to power forwards. Siakam's covered in 6 of his last 10 games, averaging 4.9 assists per game. He's hit 1 of 2 against the Lakers, 7 and then 2. Before we jump into my best bets, let's do a quick shout out for our comment of the day. Thank you to everyone who posted a comment. That was a great read. Our comment of the day goes to, is it Bude 3330? Well, what he said was, I like Bam Adebayo under 23.5 points against Houston. The Rockets allow the 5th least points to centers on the season. Bam's only hit this 9 out of 25 games this year and only 2 out of 10 in his last 10 home games. He has also never hit this line against Houston in his career. The percentage goes up slightly with Caleb Martin out, but I still believe this one is a good pick. So that's some great analysis there, and it did cash. So Bam Adebayo, 22 points today. Still had a strong game. Miami got the win, but he didn't cover this 23.5 points. So to you, my man, that's a great pick. If you want to be featured in comment of the day, I ask that you comment in this video. Tell me what you think of the picks. Are you riding with them? Do you have any other insights on picks that I may have missed? Have you got access to sharps? Do you know what they're playing? Just getting engaged, get active, and then you might be appearing on the next segment, on the next show. Now, let's jump straight into my best bet. So I've got 3 of them that I want to share. One of them is a value bet. First one I'm taking is someone that we mentioned earlier in the video. I like Jaden Ivey over 20.5 points and assists. So Jaden Ivey's covered this line in only 8 of 32 games this season, predominantly coming off the bench, averaging 16.1 points and assists and 28 minutes of game time. Now, I love this play because Ivy's going to see a massive lift in his minutes and opportunities with Cade Cunningham out injured. But check this out. I've got a graph up here over his last 10 games. Without Cade Cunningham in the lineup, Ivy's covered this line in 8 of them, averaging 29.7 points and assists per game. Now, keep in mind that this was last season. The good thing there is I think Ivy probably had a chance to get another preseason under his belt, refine some of his skills, make the adjustment to the NBA. He's probably gone a bit smarter, a bit bigger, a bit stronger, quicker, all of those things. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. But in those games without Cade, he averaged almost 36 minutes per game. He's only had the opportunity to play that many minutes this season on only 2 occasions. But check it out. I've got a nice little graph for you. In those games, he averaged 23.5 points and 7 assists. He crushed this line of 20.5. He was averaging 30 points and assists in those games. I'm expecting Ivy to play close to 35 minutes in this game, provided that he's productive whilst he's out there. If he's shit, he's going to get hooked, and we might see Alec Burks take over. But if he is productive, he's going to play close to 35 minutes. In terms of pace, the Pistons play at the 6th fastest pace in the league. And with Ivy steering the ship, they might even play quicker. The Kings, they're at the 11th fastest pace in the league. We've got a total in this game of 239 points, so there's bound to be some opportunities for him. Now, if this market isn't available, you can just take his points prop at 15.5 points. He's actually covered that in 9 of his last 10 games without Cade Cunningham. I'm taking his points and assists because he can contribute in both ways. If I happen to make the wrong call on one, there's a potential that he picks it up on the other. Jumping into our value play, I'm sticking with Jaden Ivey here. I'm taking him for over 15.5 points, over 4.5 assists, and 3+ rebounds. I've got that for $4.75 on Bet365. That's plus $3.75 for those of you in the US. So Jaden Ivey is showing that he can be very productive when given the opportunity. Up against the Kings, who don't have a defensive presence in their backcourt or shot blockers inside, I'd take my chances tonight. Look, actually, they do have a defensive presence, but he doesn't get any game time. Davion Mitchell. So for the most part, he's going to have an easy matchup all night. Let's go, Ivy. Our next pick for this one, we're heading over to LA. It's Anthony Davis over 28.5 points. Now, first thing on Anthony Davis, he got to stop moaning. Every time he drives the ball, he's yelling, screaming, and carrying on, trying to milk some fouls. It echoes through the speakers and it's painful to listen to. But we're hoping he does a lot of yelling today and he gets those calls. 28.5 points. So AD, he's only covered this line in 13 of 25 games, averaging 25.2 points per game this season. He really is hit and miss. You have to wait for injuries or a great matchup in order to pick him. Well, he does have a great matchup today because of an injury. Well, he didn't show up on our players with great matchups that I did earlier in the video. And that's because the Raptors over the last 15 games have been okay defending centers. Not the best, but definitely not the worst. So I do love this bet because Jakob Poeltl's injured. And the Raptors, they just traded Precious Achiuwa to the Knicks. So they're very thin in that center position. The Raptors only have Chris Boucher. I think he's starting. But he's 6'9" and 200 pounds. They also have Jonte Porter. He's a rookie. He's only played 3 games. He only plays 10 minutes per game. He's a little bit bigger, 6'10", 240 pounds. But at the end of the day, Anthony Davis is going to have a mismatch on every single possession of the game. And if the Lakers don't take advantage of that, someone's got to get fired. It is a team with LeBron James in it. So the coach is probably going to get fired sometime soon if they don't start winning games. And if they don't feed Anthony Davis tonight, he should be fired immediately. So the Raptors, they do have some length and size in their forwards. Scotty Barnes, Siakam, there's Thad Young off the bench, McDaniels, RJ Barrett's quite big for a shooting guard. So they do have some length, some size in their wings. And I'm not saying they're going to stop LeBron, but they can potentially slow him down. Whereas they got nobody to stop Anthony Davis. The Toronto Raptors, in the last 10 games, the defensive rating's 118. They're ranking 21st in the league. So it's a weaker defense. Good opportunity for Anthony Davis. The Raptors, very soft inside as of late. They're allowing centers to feast in their very recent games. We've seen Kevon Looney, Domantas Sabonis, Jared Allen, James Wiseman, Jalen Duren all cover their points line against the Raptors. And that's in the last week and a half. So AD, he's never cashed his points line against the Raptors in his career. But we're going to throw history aside. I'm happy to throw some cash AD's way to add his name to the list of centers who's pumped this team in recent times. So let's go, AD. So that's a wrap on today's video. I do hope you appreciate all the hard work, the analysis that's gone into this. If you have made it this far, I appreciate you. Please like, sub, share, put a comment in. Just do something so YouTube can take this video and put it in the face of more other people. Here's that outro that you all been waiting for. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice and the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.